Rich, a.k.a. Bat Phantom.
I'm Kevin, a.k.a. Neon Nazgul from the Operation Pug Podcast.
A proud member of the GonnaGeek Network.
Just like the show you're listening to now.
The opinions expressed are those of each individual host.
Check out all the podcasts at GonnaGeekNetwork.com.
And get ready, because geekiness begins in 3, 2,
1.
You are listening to the Starling Tribune, a podcast dedicated to the Arrow TV show.
This guy gets more airtime than the Kardashians, right?
This podcast is not produced or maintained by the CW, Warner Brothers Television, CTV, or DC Comics. All characters, situations, and stories are the properties of Time Warner. I am the Oracle, and this is your Tribune.
Welcome back to Earth 2's favorite newspaper, the Starling Tribune. I am the chief editor today. My name is Stargate Pioneer. Everybody calls me SP. And your other reporters for this special episode number 160 of the Starling Tribune are Chris.
Who writes this crap anyway?
And Michelle.
This is why we have a chore wheel.
Ooh, rats! Ooh! This podcast is recorded on Monday, July 3rd, 2017, live from the Starling Tribune headquarters, studios, and broadcast worldwide on www.geeks.live. Remember, our newspaper is full of spoilers, facts, and speculations about Arrow, and quite frankly, the rest of the DC TV movie and comic universe.
So this morning we'll be discussing Legends of Tomorrow, as well as news, interviews, articles, and announcements that have dropped in the past week that could impact future episodes of shows like Arrow, Flash, Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow, Vixen, Constantine, Teen Titans, Young Justice, and all the other stuff I'm not thinking of.
If you're new to the show, thank you for searching us out on the internet and joining us. If you like our content, why don't you swing by our podcast network home at GonnaGeek.com, where you can find all of our past shows, plus a ton of other geeky videos, podcasts, and articles, all under the GonnaGeek Productions banner.
Thanks, guys. Intros are behind us. Michelle, let's just go ahead and break down the current episode for us.
Sure thing. This episode is Turncoat. It's Season 2, Episode 11. Originally aired Tuesday, February 7th, 2017. Director Alice Troughton has done many things, including 2 Legends, 1 Flash, 1 Teen Wolf, 13 Merlin, 9 Sarah Jane Adventures, 2 Doctor Who, and 2 Torchwood. Writers are Grant Godfrey, who's done 6 Flash, 6 Legends, 1 Arrow, and 4 Tomorrow People, and Matthew Malla, who's done 4 Legends.
Is it just me, or is the, I guess, Vancouver directing scene just pulling more and more people from the BBC lately?
Seems like it, because that's a lot of it's a lot of British TV.
It is.
Exactly. Like 13 episodes of Merlin. Merlin was BBC, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah.
9 episodes of Sarah Jane Adventures, 2 Doctor Who, and 2 Torchwood. And I know that I've heard the guys and gal over at Gallifrey Public Radio talk about Alice Troughton before. Matter of fact, they might have even interviewed her. I can't remember specifically, but this is somebody who's big across the pond. And welcome to Legends of Tomorrow in America and, Canada, I guess, because that's where this is filmed.
If we have to.
If we have to. Build the wall. Canada, you got to pay for it. So this episode that we're talking about, Turncoat, aired in the first full week of February of 2017, and it aired on Tuesday. I believe this was either the first or second episode that moved to Tuesday for Legends of Tomorrow. But on Monday that week, Supergirl aired their 11th episode of Season 2 to a live rating of 2.43 and a live plus DVR of 3.81. It was the Martian Chronicles, which is where the White Martian, Green Martian storyline really started. And Tuesday, before Legends of Tomorrow, Flash aired to a live rating of 2.91, which I believe was one of their lower episodes of the season, and a live plus DVR rating of 4.59, almost doubling their ratings with the DVR to the Untouchable episode name. Legends of Tomorrow pulled in a 1.77 rating, which is actually pretty good for Legends of Tomorrow, and a live plus DVR of 2.87 with this episode Turncoat. And then on Wednesday, Arrow with their 12th episode of the season, with the wonderful episode Broadfoot. We talked about it before on Starling Tribune, but the live rating was only 1.61, which I believe was close to the season low or the series low, and a live plus DVR rating of 2.73. So Legends of Tomorrow just went up that ladder just a little bit and beat out Arrow.
That's harsh.
It is.
Legends was the better show for a lot of the season, though.
I don't know. Arrow was pretty good this year. Just didn't get the ratings because people left after season 4.
See, I don't know. Maybe I'm biased. I'm not saying Arrow was bad, but Legends for me is my popcorn show. I'm going to kick back. I'm going to relax. I don't have to think hard about anything. I'm just going to have a fun time. And I think sometimes in the Arrow world, especially, I need that comfort, that easy show. Whereas Arrow, it's like, here's some more depression and gloom for you, as if you haven't had enough already. Have a little bit more. And you're like, but I want to be happy. Stop it.
Yeah, well, you can say that it's, here's the show that originated everything, and now it seems like it's the odd man out because it's so gritty. And then you have Supergirl and Flash and Legends, and they're all bright colors and superheroes and time travel.
Yeah. So one of the things that we talked about this before on this show, just in the last few weeks, one of the things about Arrow that I miss is the great stunts, the fights, which made the darkness bearable for me. And I kind of missed that, as well as the whole relationship thing that went off the rails season 3, season 4.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. So I hope that we'll talk later about season 6 of Arrow and what they're starting to set up, as enough as what we've heard in the news. But in the meantime, Legends of Tomorrow definitely was a fun show, even though we had ourselves scratching our heads in the second part of the season, which started here. So this will be an interesting discussion. Talking about Turncoat, Michelle, what's the overall theme for the episode?
Well, when you hear Turncoat, it's someone who's betrayed someone else. So we have Rip, who has betrayed the team, even though he's not doing it. Basically, you can say he's not doing it willingly because the Legion of Doom rewrote his brain. And this does take place during the Revolutionary War, and the British saw the wannabe Americans as traitors to the crown. So I guess there's that reading too.
Traitors are everywhere in this episode, and I love it.
I see. I guess I'll have to watch my back for traitors on this podcast.
There's only a small target on your back. You're okay.
Well, I'm wearing my color and flying my colors. It's July 3rd, which is very apropos to this episode with the revolution of 1776 fully underway. And I'm, of course, sporting the July 4th colors of America.
By revolution of 1776, he means the original Brexit.
As you were. Fight scenes and stunts, Chris, we have a few to go over. There was a great Christmas Eve party.
I kind of like the Christmas Eve party, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait a sec, these are redcoats, and they have AKs, basically, and they're just wiping people out. This is kind of brutal, but at the same time, one of those consequences of time travel, and if you screw up the time stream, here's stuff that can happen, and I kind of enjoyed it, and I kind of enjoyed also Evil Rip, as he sets off the EMP at the end, and then, bam, just kills Sarah straight up.
Yeah, once he killed Sarah, I was. We'll talk about that later. I had an issue with that, and I know the path that the season took, but at the time, I really.
He's rewired. It's okay.
And they didn't have AKs, Chris. It was ARs.
I'm sorry.
M16s or M4s or whatever that battle.
They had assault rifles. Let me rephrase.
Fully automatic weapons.
So when is Arrow going to do a gun violence episode set in 1776 to teach us a special lesson?
You sure it's going to be Arrow with the time travel and not Legends of Tomorrow?
Oh, please don't do it to Legends of Tomorrow.
I know. Well, Michelle, Nate, and Amaya, they have a little scuffle by the river, which leads to some later on.
Yeah, so Nate and Amaya are off to rescue George Washington and Rory. That's applied. That's implied. That was a nice running joke. To me, this comes out of nowhere. They're just, look, this is my least favorite part of the episode. If you take out Nate and Amaya from this episode, I would it's almost a perfect episode. But they're walking along and they get attacked, and then Nate steals up and rolls with the guy, and he ends up in the river, and then Amaya channels a seal, and then eventually they hook up.
The hookup, no strings attached hookup, right?
Basically, he's like, yeah, we have Tinder in the future, so this could be super cash, babe.
I missed out on the whole Tinder thing. I've never used it. I don't have the app, and I just that would have been a different experience. I believe it was Love at AOL. I love the laugh there, Chris. So, Chris, this was one of the more delicious stalking fights, suspenses throughout the entire series. Jax versus Rip in the Wave Rider.
Yeah, and that's the best way to put it, the stalking element to it, because it felt very much like Alien to me at one point, or other shows where you've got the protagonist who's trying to set the traps, who's trying to get away from the relentless predator. And yeah, it's kind of tough to hide from Rip on his own ship. Even as scrambled as his brain is, he knows a lot of secrets about the ship, but Jax more than holds his own.
I almost was disappointed that Jax did not open up a new smuggling compartment somewhere within the ship. I think that would have been appropriate. Maybe that'll happen in the future. And of course, then they can have their little homage to Han Solo with the Millennium Falcon as well. That would be cool, right?
Oh, yeah, that'd be sweet. But Disney's not going to like that.
The front of the Wave Rider looks like the front of the Millennium Falcon.
And yeah, having a a little smuggler compartment is not exactly a trademark by Star Wars. So you can,
true. And remember, they did let them do a
George
Lucas episode basically with tons of Star Wars gags in it with no repercussions. So perhaps I was just overthinking the overly litigious nature of the House of Mouse.
You never know. I mean, they've got a rat, not a mouse, but a rat on this. So yeah, there
fun.
You go. And then finally, Michelle, we have George and Rory's plan. Kaboom.
George Washington and Mick Rory is the highlight of this episode. George Washington is going to get hung by the British, and he's standing there basically with the noose around his neck, and he's like, I do have a final word. I've learned the word kaboom. And Roy, punches a soldier, gets a gun, fires it, the gunpowder, and then there's a big boom. And then there's a fist fight, and it's awesome. And then it's ruined when Nate comes along and stops a bullet. Because really, I think Roy and George Washington could have held their own and just taken care of the situation.
Except for Roy would have ended up with a ball in his head.
Little chance.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what was about to happen had Nate not come in and steeled up and everything. But this episode was full of great quotes, and one between Rory and George was, "I'll bet you 100 U's that you are wrong." What do you mean? Forget about it. So that was really fun. And then, of course, Michelle, you are our big time travel expert. So take us down what we're looking at in this episode.
Well, this takes place in 1776 during a key point in the Revolutionary War. So it's basically New Jersey, and then they end up having to go to Pennsylvania because that's where the party is and such. And basically, George Washington dies. There's no America, and this sends an epic time quake. And this is what I like about Sarah. Sarah's like, it's a trap. Like Chicago, but it's good to know that that they knew that going in. And I really liked how they got George Washington being honorable, and there's rules of war and everything like that. So they take a lot of liberties, but I think they got George Washington pretty good.
I thought so too.
The one qualm I had with George Washington is they were depicting him as a soldier, and yes, he was adept at war and soldiering, but he really just was a plantation farmer. He was a businessman, and the warring that he did was based on economics and personal freedoms versus a desire to be warlike. So the fact that he said he's been a soldier since he's 20 years old, while true, his main occupation was plantation owner. He was a farmer. So I just want to set that straight. It's one thing I know from history, like the one thing. So give it to me, guys. Give it to me.
All right,
The
you
one.
can have it, SP.
All right. But there was also the time stream, Michelle, right? And we learn a little bit more about the time stream. No days of the week.
Yeah, because Nate and Amaya, I guess they're making breakfast because Ray has the chore wheel, and that's when we learn that they don't know days of the week. They haven't set up like today's Monday into this. They haven't set up like their own little ship calendar, and so they really don't know just when they are, which is interesting. Like then they don't know when their birthday is, and they don't know when holidays are, because they only celebrate Christmas because where they were, it was Christmas time. So they decided to have their own Christmas party. But, who knows if it was Christmas in 2016 or whatever.
Well, you knew it was around Christmas because, well, it was around the mid-season break. So, you'd have to have Christmas around that point in time. And I love Sarah's depiction of the holidays, by the way. Nobody fights like family. There you go. I think we've all, everybody that's on this show and is listening has all experienced that.
True.
Oh, yeah. There's still a fight going on in my family for 2 years. There are people who aren't talking to me.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, I don't even know what I did wrong, but it's like, whatever.
Guess I'll just live my life and show up at the family stuff, and eventually we'll figure it all out. So talking about family, Chris, we have a lot of family to talk about. Where do you want to start?
Let's start with Captain Sarah Lance. I think that's a good place to start.
Okay, what's going on with her?
The good captain's quite aware that she's walking into a trap. And of course, we all kind of realize that, but even knowing that, she puts together a solid plan to ensure that the Legends can at least get a decent attempt in there to save General Washington. Despite the fact that things sort of fall apart, they still do. And despite the fact that Rip thinks he killed her not once, but twice in this episode, they're quite successful.
Yeah, a couple of things about that. I guess we'll start with Jax first. She puts Jax in charge. That was an interesting move, right, Michelle?
Well, you have to remember the season started with people not too sure, like who's the captain who should lead. And then it just sort of ends up falling on Stein. But we learn rather quickly Stein can't do like the immediate decisions. He's very analytical and he wants to, do facts and weigh each side. But Sarah's the type, immediate action, immediate plans. And I think she sees that also in Jax. And that's why she picks Jax instead of Stein.
Well, why Jax versus anybody else? Why not Nate or Maya or Ray? Just because they weren't on the ship?
Well, Ray is permanently an action figure at this point. So
Yeah,
having
right, doesn't
him
help.
be an acting captain is not a wise decision. And Nate and Maya are off doing each other. So they're not really there to be a captain.
Well put, ma'am. Well put.
Well stated.
All right, so you have Jax in charge, and I think he does a pretty good job all the way up to the point where he doesn't kill Rip. And I think he should have killed Rip. This is where I have an issue with the episode in the series in general, because Rip is bad. He might have been family at one point in time, but he has killed Sarah as far as he was concerned. He's taken the Spear of Destiny. He has joined the Legion of Doom. I think Jax would have been full in his right to kill Rip at this point in time.
He's full in his right, but you got to remember, Rip's kind of been a mentor to Jax and to a lot of the Legends. He put that little crazy family together, and there's probably a small part of him that thinks we might be able to save him. I mean, the wanting to do it is one thing, but not actually being able to do it. Jax has never killed before. I think that's why Sarah saves him from it. That's why she has the line of she's saving him from herself in this regard, because it takes a lot, I would imagine, to put someone down. Yeah,
it would. I just think that it would have saved a lot of hassle down the road, they would have kept their portion of the Spear of Destiny. I think the thing that I'm missing in this is that the Legion of Doom might have retrieved that portion of the Spear of Destiny anyway. So maybe I'm just a little bit too in the moment of Sarah getting killed again.
I kind of wanted him to, shoot him in the knee or something, because it wouldn't have killed him, but then it would have wounded him, and they could have taken him back to the Wave Rider, and he would have been a prisoner.
So that's what I thought when I was watching the episode. I think I yelled at the TV at one point, just shoot him in the leg.
I would have taken the Spear of Destiny, but I took an arrow to the knee.
Yeah, there you go.
A little video game reference for you there. All right. Well, Ray is a permanent action figure, but I believe we learn this time around that he is actually the varsity captain of his college diving team.
That was kind of funny because he dives on the switch and it doesn't go right away. He's got to jump on it.
Can you imagine Ray Palmer in the comedy Summer School?
It's been so long since I saw that movie, SP.
Robert Downey Jr. and Ray Palmer on the team, on the diving team. I think that would be awesome.
It'd certainly be interesting.
Mm-hmm. Mick had one of his better episodes. This was great. I'm glad America has people like Mick Rory.
Mick Rory's here to save us.
Oh, that speech he gives, calls George Washington a fop. And then he's like, look, Americans were misfits, we're outcast. We fight from the bushes. We're scrappy and we don't give up. And the fact that he's able to inspire George Washington, and then George Washington is like, you are the American spirit. It was wonderful.
That's why you're on the $1 bill.
That's why Jefferson is on the $100 bill. He's worth 100 more than you.
Ben Franklin is on the $100 bill.
Okay. Ben Franklin.
Remember, SP said he only knew one fact from history, so it's okay.
That's true. And I rarely have a $100 bill in my wallet. It has happened from time to time. When I give my Christmas money out, because I have Christmas accounts, I do take it in hundreds, but I never actually look at them. So they could be counterfeit for all I know. I'm just assuming they're not because they come from a bank. There you go. Stein is a wonderful, I believe this was a Star Trek quote here. Damn it. I'm a physicist. I'm not a doctor.
I know this is twice this season so far that he's had to perform surgery, because he had to operate on Rory's brain, and now he's pulling bullets out of Sarah.
That's just Rory's brain. It's okay.
Yeah. This is another thing that I have an issue with TV. It's all I have to do if somebody gets shot is pull the bullet out and they'll be fine. That is completely not true. I guess it's only overtaken by the fact that if you do surgery in your barn, garage, whatever, that you throw alcohol over it. And that is not true either, because alcohol has a crap ton of sugar in it. And that's just going to make that infection worse. So just a couple of medical tips from SP. I'm not a doctor. Don't take medical advice from me whatsoever. Go to WebMD or your physician for that sort of stuff. I thought it was interesting that the superpowers as well as power didn't work when Rip set off the EMP. It was an EMP, right?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, so an EMP can knock out superpowers.
Sure, why not?
Yeah, one of the complaints I have about the show is that they come up with all of these ways to not have Firestorm. They separate Jax and Stein for story reasons, or all of a sudden it's, let's do this powerful EMP sort of thing. Maybe it's futuristic EMP. I don't know. And then they try to form, and then they're like, we can't because of their quantum particle physical thingamajiggy. I don't know what it is. But then it's like, well, how do they, I guess, how did Ray fix his suit to become Ray again? How does Jackson Stein fix their thing so they can do Firestorm again? Because I'm going to admit, I don't know exactly. I know what an EMP is. I know when it's detonated, it turns off, electrical devices and things like that. But how do you get said electrical devices working again?
Lots of tedious rewiring, I suppose. I'm not 100% sure.
If the electrical current isn't engaged when the EMP goes off, you're safe. So if you have an item, provided it's not strong enough to actually melt the connections to begin with, to cause some sort of electrical surge in the system. But if you are mildly shielded and you have none of that force coming at you and you're not operating at that point in time, you are okay. I know satellite, for instance, the sun gives off EMPs all the time with solar flares, and satellites are protected against the EMPs by shielding for their core electrical components, but also they start turning that crap off when a known EMP or solar flare is coming, because they're too expensive. It's too much of a hassle to get a new satellite up and build it and launch it. And so they protect them. And that's one of the ways they protect them. So that's just an example of a non-nuclear EMP and what we do to save it. And this is one of the chief worries about the electrical power grid, is one of those EMPs that comes off. And when there is a big enough EMP, and if we do get warning, that is one of the automatic things that happens, is it starts shutting it all off, all those electrical lines and power stations, so that they can be saved to restart up afterwards. But we haven't had one in a while. I believe the last one was in the late 70s on the East Coast of the United States that knocked out power grid for the East Coast of the US. That actually did happen. So you can go back in history and read all about it. So Michelle, that is the quick and dirty example of an EMP, but that would imply that superpowers are electrically based.
Well, Jack said that they have that device or something that makes them merge
or whatnot.
Yeah. So that's what I guess didn't work. And Ray has his suit. So, Ray doesn't have his own power to, his power is his brain and his suit. So that's why he got stuck.
Right. But I guess I'm concerned about Nate and Amaya, because their superpowers didn't work either.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Well, once they got out of the sphere of the EMP, they started working. No, they didn't work inside. Oh, they did.
They did. Yeah, Nate steeled up and.
All right, my bad. I get it. So it would depend on the source of their power. Got it. Talking about the source of their power, Gideon is having a little bit of a difficulty going through 1.2 zettabytes of data, Michelle.
Oh, we got sassy Gideon again this week. Because she's like, people are like, oh my goodness, why is this taking him so long? How come we don't know this? And she's just like, you go through all this information. And if you want me to go faster, I can channel the power from life support, turn off life support to do it. So do you want me to do that?
Sure, why not? Let's make it quick.
I wasn't kidding.
Oh,
that was funny. I think she just wanted to shut everybody up. Like, oh, you're pointing at me and I just go away. I'm doing the best I can. Just shut up. I'll turn off life support and you'll pass out. I think that's what her plan was there. Not that she wanted to kill everyone.
And then Rip kills Sarah, and then Gideon comes online. Yeah, Sarah kind of dies twice this episode. And then Gideon's like, well, it's fortunate that she still has some active brain cells, so let me miraculously heal her somehow.
Weren't we wondering at the time if she was going to suffer from any brain damage from this?
Gideon's magic.
When oxygen is cut off from the brain, that's what kills you, is when oxygen and carbon dioxide isn't, exchanged. And that's why when you pump somebody's heart, you want to make sure that the blood keeps going to the brain, because you don't want the brain to shut down. So it is true that if you still have an active brain, you can, save someone. But it's like she was kind of out for a bit. It can take 4 minutes, I think, for oxygen to be depleted from the brain, and brain death can happen. And I guess it was less than 4 minutes.
Well, we've also got technology from the 25th century or whatnot is what Gideon is. Perhaps they've advanced some and they can regenerate damaged brain cells.
Wait a minute. Gideon's from the 25th century. Buck Rogers goes to the 25th century. Maybe Gideon is based on Buck Rogers.
Maybe Gideon is Buck Rogers.
Ooh, a gender swapped Buck Rogers. Nice. We'll have to look that one up. All right, Chris, is there anything else that you would like to state about the episode?
Evil Rip Hunter is a delight. I love those kind of episodes where they take a good guy and they twist him around and make him all twisted and evil and nasty. And I really think Arthur Darvill had to be enjoying getting to go and play the swarmy evil Rip. He's sort of the same character, but just with an evil twist, and it's tons of fun.
It is indeed. Michelle, what do you got?
I'm just going to state that it's not the age. Technically speaking, there's like an age difference between Amaya and Nate. That's not my issue with them. My issue with them is, one, it's out of the blue. Two, the way they hooked up was lame, because the hypothermia thing, I've seen that in soap operas, so that's lame. And three, they don't have chemistry at all.
No.
Amaya and Mick, that was some chemistry. And I don't know why they decided to terminate that path and go on this Nate and Amaya path. And I'm going to state it, super lame.
It kind of leaves Ray hanging out, because Ray, all he's got is his super suit, and he's the varsity captain of the diving team. And that's about it. That's what the rest of his story for the season is. And it was kind of a waste of use of character of him, in my opinion. As far as the hypothermia thing goes, just want to state for the record, medically, that is actually what you're supposed to do.
Correct.
You have somebody, like if you're out ice fishing, I'm from Minnesota. This is actually something that we are taught from birth. If you're out ice fishing, you fall through the ice and you happen to get out and you're freezing. It's one of the quickest ways to actually try to bring up the body temperature, stabilize body temperature, skin on skin, naked contact between two individuals. And that is real. And Michelle, I know what you are referring to is a trope to start a relationship. So I get that. But I just want to say for the record that if you notice symptoms of your buddy or somebody in your group that is having hypothermia, that is one way you are able to get them stabilized, hopefully. But yeah, okay, so the relationship comes out of nowhere. I kind of saw him pining after her a little bit in the last few episodes. So from his standpoint, it wasn't out of nowhere. From her standpoint, though, she goes from Mick to Nate really quick.
Yeah, and she goes from this era and thought of courting to, yeah, let's go ahead and do this. It was just not handled very well. And that's true about the hypothermia. I knew that part, like that part's true. But that whole, let's go have sex. And Amaya's been very, teammates shouldn't fraternize with each other. That's why she, didn't have that relationship with her other teammate before. It just was not handled very well.
Mm-hmm. Well, we did get a snippet of Eobard Thawne in this episode very briefly at the end. We did not get Damien or Malcolm in this episode, so they obviously had the week off. Got good fellows. Got to recharge the batteries, I guess, for those guys. And aside from that, that was about it. It was a nice episode. I enjoyed it. It was fun. And looking aside from the whole thing with Jax and Rip, I did like the stalking. I just didn't like I don't know. I unlike Chris, I don't like good guys turning bad. I know it makes for delicious stories, and Arthur Darvill pulled it off, but
I don't like it as a permanent thing, but when it's like a short-term thing, and then we need to fix them, and then you sort of have to live with the consequences. Look, one of the shows I loved growing up as a kid was Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and you got that in spades with Angel when he turned evil, and David Boreanaz rocked it as evil Angelus, and then the flip back next season, you're like, oh man, that was fun.
Wasn't Angel always evil to begin with?
Well, he was until he got a soul, and then when he had a soul, he redeemed himself. Then he lost said soul and went evil again, then reclaimed his soul, then lost it again on Angel the series a couple times. It became a trope on there that, is Angel going to lose his soul now? Yeah, he is.
Okay, I still have to finish that off. I'm at the end of season 2, so I have to finish that whole run off.
Oh yeah, you got 5 more seasons of Buffy to go and 5 of Angel.
Yep. So I got 10 more years of that wonderful Whedon content. Yep. All right. I think we're talked out of this episode. Looking forward to the next episode, which, Michelle, you happen to have a little idea of what we're going to be talking about.
Yes, the next episode is Camelot 3000. It's season 2, episode 12. It originally aired Tuesday, February 21st, 2017. The Legends continue their quest to find the Spear of Destiny before the Legion of Doom get their hands on the pieces. Their first stop is the future, after which they travel to Camelot and find Stargirl guarding a piece of the spear. Directed by Antonio Negret and written by Anderson Mackenzie.
Looking forward to that next week. All right. We are going to move on to the news. In case everybody is wondering a little bit behind the scenes of why I announced the next segment, it's to give me time to get my thumb on the button to play the bump. That's why that is all there. But from the Starling Tribune newsroom in the Starling Tribune building in Starling City on Earth 2, Michelle, from the main news desk, you have some information about what Stephen Amell would like in the upcoming season 6 of Arrow.
Yes. During his panel at the Portland Heroes and Villains Fan Fest, the actors mentioned he's talked with the show's producers about having Oliver Queen start to resemble his comic book counterpart more closely this upcoming season and beyond. And Mel said, I've said that it's very, very important that if Oliver doesn't take away lessons from season 5 and doesn't keep doing the things that have led to this catastrophic event, the character stops being interesting to me. So I hope that part of that in season 6, and if we have seasons beyond that, I hope that part of that is we get back to a lot of the tenets that people recognize from the comics. And that, of course, is humor and a socially conscious, slightly liberal superhero.
That's interesting. So, Chris, you've read a lot more of the Green Arrow comics than I have. Would you take this as a characterization of all Green Arrow, or maybe just the rebirth?
Oh, it's a characterization of the Green Arrow throughout comic history. You go back and look at Dark Knight Returns and things like that. When they bring Oliver Queen in, they make references to that. You go and look at a lot of the stories, including in the animated series. Oliver Queen has always been socially conscious, has been more liberally inclined than many others out there. So Stephen Amell is exactly right in what he's saying. And also, Stephen Amell's rocking a wicked beard right now. He could trim that down to the Green Arrow goatee very easily if they wanted to do that for season 6.
Maybe it's something that he's hinting at to give an homage to the fans to try to bring some fans back to the show. We'll see. So, Chris, you have some information about an Arrow relationship that might be in the process of changing for season 6.
I do, and why I wanted to bring this one up when I saw it in the show notes, I went, oh, this is perfect, because we kind of touched on this in the finale, is the fact that, well, Oliver and William are going to have to get along, and maybe they're just going to do this whole trope next season of all the single dads with their kids, between Renee and Diggle potentially. God knows what will happen there. All these single dads and their kids hanging out. Well, Cinema Blend has an article saying their own Adam Holmes was in attendance at a recent panel with Stephen Amell, who had this to say about Oliver and William in season 6. Amell said, I'm excited that not only are they going to learn about having the father-son relationship, I think that we're going to explore that in season 6, but William knows that Oliver is the Green Arrow, so there's a lot of interesting layers and dynamics. I'm just excited to teach him a lesson. As a father, Oliver will definitely try to be better than what he's been as a person, so hopefully he can be a good example for William. So William is hanging around for season 6, and SP, I'm not sure what this says about your favorite actress there, Anna Hopkins. She might not be hanging around if William's hanging around with his dad a lot next season.
No, I have seen her cast in other roles, so I think that they might be closing that door, unfortunately. But good for Anna Hopkins for moving on, but I would sadly see her go. I don't know either way. I would love to have her around in Arrow as an on-again, off-again character, much like Mrs. Lance was, but, it is what it is. We'll see. The fact that William knows that the Green Arrow is dad, that I think is interesting because we've been talking about a similar relationship over on Legends of Tomorrow with Dr. Stein and his aberration daughter, not believing
Abrasion?
that aberration.
Abrasion. No, sorry.
Aberration daughter. And I believe that she's not believing that dad is Firestorm. So it would be interesting for those two to get together and talk about their parents being superheroes and when they learned about it and that sort of stuff. I think that would be interesting.
Possibly.
Okay, well, we'll see if that ever actually happens. Crossover time. See, there we go. Michelle, you have, again, another tease about the yet to be cast big bad for Arrow season 6.
Yeah, TV Line, they take questions from readers. And a reader asked any news on Arrow season 6 in general. And TV Line reported, it can be teased that the next yet to be cast big bad has been on many a fan's wish list. And I'm including this in the show notes because who do we think the big bad could be? Like who has been on our wish list to appear?
Deathstroke.
But we've already had Deathstroke.
But he's on the top of many fans' wish list.
I want a Deathstroke redemption series at this point in time, so I don't want him as the big bad. I'm taking him off my big bad wish list right now. I'm putting him on my redemption series wish list.
Well, Chris, who would you have at the top of your big bad fans?
That's
wish
what I'm
list?
trying to figure out right now, and I don't know. I want Stiltman, even though that's Marvel. Never mind. I just wanted to go something ridiculous. I honestly have no idea. I'm sure we'll find out something around San Diego Comic-Con where they tease it, because that's what they've done the past few years. So what do you guys think it's going to be? Because I'm at a loss.
Michelle, do you have any great ideas?
Because I don't think they're going to do Huntress back, but her
As a
being
big bad?
No, because that would be
They're
evil.
already reeling from the Black Canary.
Yeah.
I don't think they'd want to do that because the Huntress does have a fan base.
Right. So I don't think they're going to do Batman things like Joker or the Riddler or anything like that. And that's not really a Green Arrow thing either. I can't really think of anything unless they try to do an evil version of Santana, because Santana can kind of, like, she's good, but she's so powerful that she can, turn and then bring back Constantine and then redeem Santana. And then we can have the Constantine Santana show. And that's not plausible either. So that's the thing though. Like, I'm not really too sure, like, who could be, because they've already done the League and they've done, Merlin with the Magician, and they've done Deathstroke. I can't really think either.
I'm trying to think of the recent run in Rebirth for Green Arrow, and I can't think of anything that I would definitely want to see at the top of my list. I mean, there is no top of my list. I honestly just don't know. So we will keep tabs on this over the course of the next month. And like everybody said, I think at San Diego Comic-Con, there might be an announcement of either who the big bad is or maybe the casting news of that big bad, and maybe even a panel with said big bad. So I don't know. That's how people roll at San Diego Comic-Con. We'll see. And that is just a mere 3 weeks away at this point in time.
That's all it is. Jeez.
I know. And our very own Haley from Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. podcast and the producer of Crimson Comet will be there as well. So we'll get some news from Arrow from her, I am sure. Moving on into general DC news. Chris, you have an interesting story about a collective box of movies.
That's right. The folks over at comicbookresources.com had this, but I've always talked about on this show and many other ones that DC's animated movies, most of them are really good. And I think back to the original one that came out, Superman Doomsday, that started off the recent craze for the DC superhero movies, or cartoon movies, rather. It was really good. Well, Warner Brothers Animation is celebrating the 10th anniversary of its direct-to-video films featuring DC Comics heroes with a massive 30-film collection. The set will collect every movie from the last decade, from Superman Doomsday, the first in the series, to the as-yet unreleased Batman and Harley Quinn. This will also feature the Animation Studios 5 DC Showcase animated shorts, The Spectre, Green Arrow, Jonah Hex, Catwoman, and Superman/Shazam, The Return of Black Adam, including a ton of different special features. All in all, it will be comprised of 32 separate Blu-ray discs. The Blu-ray box set is slated to arrive in stores on November 7th. The set will be available for digital download early on August 15th. Here's the kicker, though. Pricing has yet to be announced for either version. So keep your ears open. You'll find out soon enough how much this box set might go for. Now, if you're like me, who probably owns about a third to half these movies already, you're probably not buying this box set. But if you've only got a couple, this might be very tempting.
I don't know, Michelle, what do you think about this? I'm hesitant to even consider this. What about you?
I agree with Chris. I have seen many of these, and they are very well voice acted. They're very well written. The animation is crisp and smooth. So I'm actually considering this, depending on the price.
The price is going to be huge, and I don't see this being cheap. I mean, I think we're talking bare minimum $150.
I'm thinking you're talking 30 films. I'm thinking 300 actually.
Well, here's the thing. A lot of these films have been out for a long time, and you can pick them up off the $5 rack in a lot of cases, or you can find them dirt cheap. So it's the newer stuff that I think will drive the price up. I'm thinking 150 is low, and I think we're talking really about $200 to $250 is what the end price will be when it's said and done.
And $99 is to be a steal. I might consider it at $99.
Yeah, $99. It's highway robbery.
Yeah. And not to minimize the work that everybody's been doing, but I mean, that's all I'm willing to spend, because it's got movies in there that I'm just honestly not ever going to watch. So,
you know, I thought that too until some of them hit Netflix, and I was like, oh, what the hell? Let me turn this on while I'm cooking dinner tonight. And then I was just pulled in. I was like, okay, didn't think I was going to care about this, but I really like it.
But you had to be in the mood for it. You had to be doing something else and then being pulled into it. So,
there's also the fact that we do multiple podcasts and TV shows we have to watch for those. So time is at a premium to watch something else.
I mean, I've got Arrival I still have to watch. I have other movies that I still have to watch. That wonderful NASA movie that was detailing the African-American ladies that were part of the NASA program in the 70s. I still have to watch that. I mean,
SP, if you would just stop watching The Martian 3 times a day, you'd have time to watch other things.
I admit, every time I actually turn that on to play it in the background, I do get sucked into it. But I have only watched it about 3 or 4 times in the last 6 months.
This
week. Oh, it's a great movie. Great movie. Love that movie. Oh. Michelle, have you seen The Martian?
Yes, I have.
You probably don't like it as much as I do, but you probably still like it, right?
Oh, I do like it. I thought it was, really interesting. I like the hypothetical, this is how we can survive on Mars sort of deal. So I liked it.
The real question for you, SP, is did you read the book?
I have not read the book yet, and that's like the next book that I want to read. I still have to finish the Honorverse. Podcasting has sidetracked my free time. I'm lucky enough to get the weekly comics in.
Okay, that's a fair point. That's a very fair point.
So, Michelle, talking about weekly comics, let's move on over to The Flash. And, well, let's not talk about the comics, but let's talk about the show on CW, The Flash, and how Iris will be dealing with Barry's departure.
Yes, this is another reader question to TV Line. And someone asked, any scoop on how the Flash's Iris will be grieving Barry after sacrificing himself to the Speed Force? Well, TV Line reported, With the action picking up 6 months later, it's unclear if time heals all wounds. TV Line spoke to Candace Patton, who plays Iris, and she said, "We still don't have Barry out of the Speed Force. Iris is really struggling to deal with that, and she does it in her own way." And while there's buzz that Iris will have assumed a larger role within Team Flash, Patton was mum on what, if anything, Barry's fiance might be doing to try to get her love back. So that's interesting information that there's a time jump.
I think there was even a time jump, at least 3 months, with the whole Flashpoint, right?
Basically the length of the off season.
Yeah, but a 6 month. Well, I guess they spent a lot of time. Did this last season end in May?
Yes.
I mean, calendar time for the Flash. It ended in May.
Yes.
So they're looking at Christmas time then.
I guess
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Interesting.
Thanksgiving/Christmas.
Maybe that's to compress things around the holidays.
They're
don't know.
going the Iron Man 3 route, the Shane Black route.
Oh. We'll see how this all pans out, and I'm sure there'll be more questions about it, especially as they move forward with San Diego Comic-Con. We keep saying that, but it is right around the corner. And Michelle, you have a wonderful story here about the winners of the 43rd Annual Saturn Awards.
Yes, the Saturn Awards were held June 28th, and some of our shows won. Best Actress on Television went to Melissa Benoist from Supergirl. Best Supporting Actress on Television went to Candace Patton, who plays Iris on The Flash. And Best Superhero Adaptation TV Series went to Supergirl.
Wow.
Nice.
I'm a little shocked at that, Supergirl. But I guess I don't know, Chris, what do you feel about that?
I figured it'd probably end up going to The Flash because The Flash is the ratings juggernaut, but I'm not displeased it went to Supergirl. Supergirl was a better series this year than The Flash.
Yeah, you still had issues with Supergirl. Like the whole, the person that's supposed to be in charge of the newspaper is a night fighting superhero. So.
Well, yeah, that is a bit of a problem, but I mean, my own book, Flash, was either the third or fourth best of the series this season, so Supergirl eclipsed it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you are talking about comic book adaptation, you had a lot of stuff from the comic book this season from Supergirl. You had Cyborg Superman. We got Daxam. We had Martian Manhunter storyline, and it's a lot of stuff from the comic book was easier to recognize on Supergirl this season than perhaps stuff from the comic book on Flash.
Well, if we ever lose Arrow as a show, I'd be adverse to going back and picking up Supergirl from the beginning. That would be a good watch. I don't know. We'll see. In the meantime, yeah, it was a good season. I was racking my brain amongst everything. It can't go to any of the Netflix shows because that's not on television. So, I mean, Powerless wasn't on there. That would have been a good nod. Oh, well. Okay. Well, it was still great seeing all the winners of the Saturn Awards going to comic book shows. It might have been unprecedented, actually. I don't know. Michelle, do you have any insight on that?
No, I don't. Sorry.
Okay. We'll take a look at that as we can. If you do like all these superhero shows, if you like all these geeky shows that we talk about on TV, you can join the GonnaGeek.com network and listen to a lot of other geeky content, right, Chris?
That's right, SP. There's a variety of other shows over at GonnaGeekNetwork.com. I think we're in the low 20s worth of shows that are on the network now. I honestly lost count because we just added a bunch of them, so I will do an updated count for the next network promo. But each week on the Starling Tribune, we like to try and talk about the network in general, and then talk about a specific episode of a podcast we'd like you guys to go check out. Give it a try. You might enjoy it. This one might be slightly self-serving because I'm on this one, but I want to talk to you guys about episode 267 of the All Things Good and Nerdy podcast, entitled Early Delivery. It's a strange week as the ATGN crew records during the week for once. Naki has the latest details in the long-rumored SNES Mini. Chris geeks out over Peter Parker's new MCU debut. Willie has the latest on this month's free Sony games, and to wrap things up, Anthony shares the latest on Deadpool 2. Yes, Deadpool 2 is filming already, kiddies, and there's a little bit that's gotten out already. And I see that, thankfully, someone has updated the show notes for me to say there are 23 current shows on the GonnaGeek Network. So head on over to GonnaGeekNetwork.com. Check out All Things Good and Nerdy. Check out Better Podcasting. Check out all sorts of the other shows that are over there. I guarantee you'll be able to find something else that you like over at GonnaGeekNetwork.com. Well, guys, I think it's time for us to start wrapping things up. A big thank you to everyone who downloads or watches the replay of this after we record live. Don't forget you can find the downloaded podcast over at StarlingTribune.com, on Spreaker, or on the GonnaGeek YouTube page.
Tell all your other listeners that they can join us live on our new day, Sundays, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, on www.geeks.live. And don't forget to run on over to your podcatcher of choice, rate, review, and subscribe. Just want to say thank you to everybody that downloads the show, and thank you to the production team behind the podcast, because without that, the show just simply would not exist.
You can find all of our contact information on the GonnaGeek Network at GonnaGeekNetwork.com, where you can check out our forums and other shows. If you want to share your thoughts, head on over to our Facebook page, send in a tweet, or call us at 612-888-CAVE. That's 612-888-2283. That's a great episode, guys. That wraps it up for another week. Any last words before we sign off? At Stargate Pioneer.
Hashtag kaboom.
At the Chris Farrell.
Hashtag Brexit 1776.
And I am at Michelle Ely, signing off with hashtag Georgie and Rory bromance. Oracle, I think we're done here.
This was the Starling Tribune. You can leave us feedback at GonnaGeek.com or check out our archive at StarlingTribune.com. Visit GonnaGeek.com for more podcasts. Music by Kevin MacLeod can be found at Incompetech.com. This podcast is not produced or maintained by the CW, Warner Brothers Television, CTV, or DC Comics. All characters, stories, and situations are the property of Time Warner. No infringement is intended. We will see you for the next episode of CW's Arrow.